He held his brother down on the execution block and adjusted his collar himself. 20 years later, in the same palace, he saw a face almost identical to his brother's. In that moment, he realized karma was not a myth. Cold wind scraped against the stone walls of the kingdom. The sky hung low and gray. Ulrich stood by the tower window. He had always known he stood behind the light. The light belonged to his brother, Cedric. Golden hair, broad shoulders, silver armor. The people cheered for him. The year their father fell ill, the palace smelled of herbs and melting wax. At midnight, only moonlight touched the king's bed. That night, Ulrich entered the chamber alone. The next morning, the bells rang across the city. The king was dead. 3 days later, Cedric was accused of killing their father. The evidence was complete. Witnesses stood ready. Cedric shouted in denial. Ulrich lowered his head and wept. The execution block stood in the center of the square. Mud and snow carried the scent of blood. Forced to his knees, Cedric waited. Alaric stepped closer, stray, tightened his collar, and whispered, "May God forgive you." The blade fell. The crown changed hands. Ulrich took the throne. He ruled wisely, and the kingdom prospered. The people called him a just king. At night, he often stood alone in the empty hall, as if someone still stood beside him. That night, Cedric's wife fled the kingdom. She carried a young boy in her arms. She never looked back. 20 years later, that child had grown. He was tall, his golden hair moving slightly in the cold wind. His eyes were the same as the man who once stood on the execution block. A dying old soldier told him the truth. The letters were forged. The witnesses were bribed. The one who gave the order was the king. He didn't cry. He just watched the flames dance in his eyes, feeding a rage he refused to show. Years later, he entered the capital as a soldier. Quiet, calm, unnoticed, until one winter night, the king was aging. Silver hair, hollow eyes, a throne that felt heavier each winter. He stood before the throne. He removed his helmet. The hall fell silent. The young man did not draw his sword. He presented a written confession. The truth surfaced. Power began to shift. Ulrich was taken to the dungeon, the same place where his brother once waited to die. The stone walls were cold and damp. Snow fell over the kingdom once more. Karma had never disappeared. It had only been waiting. Snow returned to the kingdom. So did the judgment. The throne was no longer his. The young heir stood atop the tower, golden hair stirred by the wind, his gaze steady and cold. Karma never forgets. It only waits for the right moment.